Hey guys, today we're going to be racing the Formula 3 by RSR.
Yep, and this was actually a really interesting car. I think you agree that you found it quite interesting because I think this is one of the only cars, or possibly one of the first cars, to actually have an actual driver of the car, open-wheeled anyway, actually assisting with development,
So
which was...
must be pretty accurate then.
Well, it's got to be, and like I said, I've taken it out already, and you're going to see that on the video, obviously pre-recorded. And I did feel that it was very, very accurate. I mean, these cars feel a lot like go-karts in terms of the sensations that you feel, because they're very raw. There's no electronic aids allowed or anything like that. So it's a very, very raw car. And I tell you something, while you were driving it, it did feel really, really raw. So I'm very, very impressed with that.
I mean, one thing you noticed just before we started shooting was this is the third week in a row now we've been driving an open cockpit car.
Going to open cockpit
it's just a coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're not sort of pushing that way.
Although the more open cockpit cars that are coming out, it's just becoming more and more. I think it's more and more common because people like driving the open cockpit cars. You can have a Ferrari experience at Silverstone. You've had one, haven't you?
Yeah.
You can have that kind of experience, but you can't have an experience of driving an F1 car.
That's true.
They won't give you that.
That's true.
They might give you a Formula Silverstone car, which I've seen myself. And Formula Silverstone cars are quite similar to this in many ways, actually. And so having seen one of them and having seen Formula 3 cars in real life, I know what to expect. And I was thoroughly pleased with this car, considering what I know of the car.
It feels pretty old school F1, doesn't it?
It is in many ways old school F1, and
sort of the Nigel Mansell days.
It's funny you mention him. It is funny you mention him because we are going to mention him again later on in this video. But let's go through its specs as we always do. It's got a Dallara chassis, so Dallara is one of the few chassis makers of this car, and this particular one is Dallara, and most Formula 3 cars now are Dallara chassis, as well as Indy cars, I believe, are Dallara chassis, and a number of different cars, the Formula 2 and all Dallara chassis.
It boasts a 6-speed sequential gearbox.
Yep, so paddle shifters, which is fine. I did try and get it in 7th. I mean, a number of times you won't hear it, but I'm trying to click it. It's like, nope, there's no 7th here.
Right, the next I'm quite interested in. It's 556 kg, and that includes the driver.
Yeah.
So what, the driver's what, 55 kg?
60, 60. I think they
so this car is sub 500.
Yes, and I will also point out that the engine itself is minimum 85 kilos.
Wow.
So take 85 kilos off that. The actual rest of the car is, you're looking around 400 kilos.
Wow.
So it's not a heavy car at all.
No.
Like I said, this is more like those Formula Silverstone races. In fact, this is a lot like the kind of car that I was, building at university in terms of its power, in terms of how it looks and everything. Just it's a bit longer and a little bit wider. That's about it. With that being said, it does have a 2-litre inline-4 naturally aspirated engine. They have to be dual overhead cam, and they have to have 16 valves, so 4 valves per cylinder.
Okay, that's the requirements.
That's the FIA requirements, yep. Which means that also with the restrictors on there, so they have intake restrictors and everything, you get 210 brake horsepower, or thereabouts, they have a slight leeway, at about 6,000 RPM on this particular car. And that also gives you 272 Newton meters of torque, which comes in a little bit lower at 4,500 RPM.
I mean, 210 brake, not a lot, is it?
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
But then again, 500 kilogram car.
Yeah, okay. I'll be interested what its ratio is like.
Well, if you think it's power to weight ratio, if it's 500, let's say it's 556, like we said. And you're looking at 210 brake horsepower, take away the 10%, you got 200. You're probably looking at about 400 bhp per ton, which isn't bad. That's Ferrari territory.
Yeah, not bad.
And remember, this is an entry series.
Oh, and the last stat is 140 miles an hour. That's its top speed.
Yeah, and again, that's not that much either.
No, but to be fair, I mean, now that you say that, the rate power to weight ratio, it's not bad at all.
It's not bad, and if you also take into consideration that it's an entry series car, that's not bad for an entry series car. It's basically for rookies.
Yeah.
In many ways. Now, this championship, the Formula 3 championship, first started in 1950. That's how long this has been running. It's been in Britain, it's been in Germany, it's been all over Europe. Things have merged, things have split, and it still runs. Formula 3 still runs, which is absolutely great. Now, the importance of Formula 3 is so big that we're just going to list off some of the notable drivers.
Yeah, I don't think we should list off all of them because we'll probably be here till tomorrow.
Well, those are just some of them. So I'm just going to list them off, just go through them without actually mentioning. But Sir Sterling Moss, Ken Tyrrell, Mr. Bernie Eccleston.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, this is what he started in. Jackie Stewart, Ayrton Senna.
Oh, the legendary Ayrton Senna.
Mika Häkkinen, Jenson Button, Mark Webber, Damon Hill, Mr. Mustache, Nigel Mansell, James Hunt.
I think I need to shave. I don't look like much of Mansell moustache at the moment.
David Coulthard, Rubinho Barrichello.
Rubinho Barrichello?
That's his name.
Oh, okay.
Daniel Ricciardo, Valtteri Bottas. So you got the new flying Finn.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. This is where their competitions after go-karting went.
So I'm sure were they friends then?
They've always been friends. I mean, right now it's a bit frosty, but they've always been friends since they were kids. You've also got the likes of Sebastian Vettel, 4-time world champion. The one Max Verstappen, 18 years old.
Oh, is that the so-called next superstar?
Next Schumacher. I would say this. I'm a Schumacher fan. He could be as good as Schumacher. He's that good. And speaking of Schumacher, Michael Schumacher himself was in Formula 3 and he won the championship in 1990 here in Germany. So it's a very important.
It is.
It's a very important formula.
It's a feeder.
It's a feeder series into F1 and the higher tier.
Yeah.
Very, very important. I think that's enough about the actual Formula 3. It's a great series. If you want to watch it though, if you find Formula 3 videos, you should watch. Some of the racing in here is absolutely phenomenal.
I'm sure there's more overtaking than there is in F1.
Yes,
because obviously more mistakes are made.
Also, all the cars are pretty much equal.
Okay.
So everyone's more bunched up. Okay. Like you said as well, more mistakes. They're rookie drivers. They're learning.
Yeah.
And as you can see, I was learning as well. But the mod info, downloaded it. It was a zip file off Race Department, 89 meg. So 90 meg, that's not bad. That's a pretty decent download. When I unzipped it again, I was surprised. It was only 328 meg. Like the Ferrari last week, it's not a huge file, which does mean that it must be really well optimized.
But that comes with the 7 skins.
Yes, that's the 7 skins.
And then they've got a 1.2 gig one, which is 25 extra skins, right? And
again, in those you get all the drivers, including Max Verstappen, which is the livery we're driving right now, the Red Bull one. So again, 1.2 gig, it just shows how high quality the textures are. They've really worked really hard on them. Now they had an actual, like we said, an actual F3 driver assisting with development, and the modders actually spent time with the team, with the actual team, actually at Spa, I believe was one of them, and to understand the car, get the telemetry. So, Omicron Motorsport, I think on behalf of all of us, we thank you, because it's allowed the modders to come up with this. And that's really good. To have an actual race team and an actual race driver involved in developing a car for a simulator is so important. I think that is the next step. And with that, we have the actual team, or some of the members of the team that will rattle off the names.
Do you want me to have a go? Because I think...
go for it.
Shall I make the first mistake then?
Yeah, go for it.
Mario... G then?
I think it's Giles.
Giles? No, it's not double. It's a double L.
I don't know. Mario and Maurizio.
Yeah.
I want to say Mario and Maurizio did the modelling. Great modelling. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. Andrea Loheyo. I think that's with the physics.
Yeah, I'll take the next one. Tristan Cliff.
He was the F3 driver involved in this, and I think you can take the one after that as well.
El Mariachi.
Oh, come on, El Mariachi.
Mariachi, damn. Okay.
You never heard of a mariachi band?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I think I remember
with the sounds. And
when you're reading it through, it's different.
It is different, and obviously there were a number of other modders who led additional support, including David Dominguez, After Midnight, Gianmarco, Avaletta, more, all these little modders coming around from other teams to say, we'll give you.
Yeah, and no more comments about our pronunciation, please.
No, that was a good comment. That was a good comment.
So, to be fair, it's a valid comment.
It was a well valid comment, yeah. So that's the team. Now that was it shows it's a good team. Now we move on to the car itself. There isn't too much to say about the car because the modelling was fantastic. I really enjoyed the modelling. It looked like an F3 car. I've seen these in real life.
You know what? The first thing that sticks out in all cars is the steering wheel.
Yeah, you have to look at that, isn't it?
And now, is it me or does it look like there's like those tennis tape grip on the side?
Yep.
And I'm not complaining. I think the detail is brilliant.
It is.
Absolutely
brilliant. That is what you expect. I mean, I've handled these steering wheels before. They're not that expensive. Remember, these are cars built on the cheap.
Yeah.
When I mean on the cheap, I mean maybe 100,000. pounds, 200,000.
Okay, not so
but
cheap, but
relatively cheap compared to a race car.
Yeah.
You know, so things like that for comfort, it's probably got some sort of a cushion underneath that, and they've just wrapped it up around the carbon fiber. You know, that's how it's made, or whether it's OMP that's made it or whoever that's made it. And to have that kind of detail in there, even it's got bump mapping on it. You can actually see the dots reflecting light differently.
Yeah, when you turn it, you can see it.
It's really, really nice. I think we were thoroughly impressed.
Yeah, I was impressed with that.
In fact, I was impressed with everything on the car. Very, very nicely done. Moving from the modeling to the textures with the 1.2 gig pack, it just shows the textures are really high quality on that. With the model, that's really good, with all the smooth edges and all the level of detail modeling and all of that. You have to have good textures, otherwise it's just going to look out of place, like you mentioned with the tape.
And also with the light bouncing off and...
Exactly, all the bump mapping, reflective mapping. If you press the headlight button, it actually switches on the rain lights.
Okay.
So you know the flashing red light you get at the back of the cars?
Yeah.
It switches on that, which is, you know, a little attention to detail.
Yeah.
So that all this is included in there. The sounds. I've heard these cars in real life. Sounds really, really good. I have one gripe with the sounds.
Go on.
I felt they were too quiet. I had to crank up the volume a bit.
Okay.
They were too quiet. I know that these cars are louder than that in real life.
I mean, I've been to one of the Formula series and they are pretty loud.
Yeah, you have been to. I think it was Formula 3.5, isn't it, that you've been to?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so that's a Formula series you've been to. You know how loud these cars can get. This car was a little bit quiet. That's my only gripe with the sounds. Apart from that, I think the shifting was great. The rev sounds were great, and because it doesn't have, I didn't know that it didn't have an electronic throttle kick. I had to kick the throttle myself.
Okay.
And as I got used to doing that again, because I haven't been doing that for a while, it just felt a lot more realistic, and I felt a lot more connected to the car, which is where we move on to physics. The car, it just seemed spot on, even when I crashed. And I don't know whether the crash is on the next lap, but I purposefully took down the gears. Right, just to see what would happen if I started over revving the car. So obviously I wanted the back end to step out. And when it did step out, the way it worked, it looked so realistic, especially in the replay. You know, the car swerves to one side and then just jolts over. Yeah. It was exactly what you would expect, and I was really, really impressed, because some cars, when it gets to those extreme limits, they go slightly funny. Now, obviously, you're not going to go to those extreme limits, but it's nice to know that this car, at those extreme limits, has everything there. It still responds how it should.
It's been modeled perfectly well. Well, the physics.
I mean, the one thing I did notice was when coming into the final chicane, the bus stop chicane. When coming into the bus stop chicane, it was really, really odd, because I felt that the back of the car was sort of getting away from me. So I had to really slow the car down, and I cannot explain why. Braking really hard, going to the chicane, I know it's slightly uphill. I would have expected the front end to get away from me a bit, you know, to lift over the front end. It seemed that the back end got away from me. Now, I'm presuming that's how these F3 cars handle. If that is the case, it makes a very interesting drive in low speed. You have to be careful with this car in low speed corners.
I'm sure that's exactly how it is in real life as well.
It must be, it must be, because it feels like there isn't enough downforce on the back, and because of the lack of downforce, there you go, there's one. Right, I think I'm going to do it here. So that's where I actually lost control. Now here, I'm going to knock down the gears, and there. See what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very realistic on how it should work.
So that's basically Tristan Cliff's input, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. Let's go. And don't forget the telemetry from the rest of the team as well. These guys, these modders, actually had telemetry of this car.
Okay.
So much telemetry, so much data. They saw the car in action. They worked with the team. Everything was available to them. And you know what? I think it does show. It really does show.
You know, I want to go back to your point you just made a good few minutes ago when you said the cost of the car is about between 100 and 200,000.
Yeah, that's something you could get.
Wow,
possibly.
I'm quite shocked. That's pretty cheap in racing terms.
That is. I mean, obviously, that when you rebuild the engine and all that kind of stuff, the prices will go up.
Yeah.
But to build the car in itself, amazingly enough, these cars aren't that expensive to build. I mean, sure, this car could possibly go up to maybe $500,000 in cost.
Yeah.
But still, that's not that much, considering. Let's look at a Formula 1 car. One Formula 1 car is, a good, I don't know, maybe 4 million? 4 or 5 million.
Should we start a Kickstarter up?
For Formula 1? If you guys want to support us to build a Formula 1 team, AD Racing, please send us a message at It's Never Gonna Happen, PO Box, God knows what. But last thing we think we need to really mention on this, we've talked about the physics and all that. It's important that with all these great physics and everything, you can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it in your hands, whether if you've got a butt kicker device or some other transducers, you can feel it in that. The feedback on this car was phenomenally good, exceptionally good.
Yeah, very accurate.
It was very accurate. It felt heavy. You know, I've driven, like I said, I've driven go-karts before. I've seen these Formula cars. I've been in these Formula cars. I've tested some of them. It's heavy. The wheel should be heavy, not light. Right? This wheel was really, really heavy. Didn't feel like your normal road car, you know, with your power steering and all that. This felt like you had to work for it. I would say if I was to do 30, 40 laps of this car, my arms would be hurting. It is that heavy.
A good workout then.
It is a definite good workout. And we mentioned this about a few cars before, haven't we?
Yeah.
That have this feeling. This is definitely one of them. And like we said, it's not a fast car.
Yeah, I think it's sort of generally the old racing cars, isn't it?
In exactly that kind of feeling. It's the old, it's the raw classic feeling that we want. And I was really, really happy with that. And last thing to mention is, even though it's not a fast car, it was very easy to drive, but it's difficult to master. So it's easy to get consistent lap times, but to get consistently fast lap times, that's the challenge.
Basically, when you're pushing it, that's
where it starts becoming a little bit
unpredictable.
Especially, like I said, in the slower corners. So that's, I think, what you're going to rate it. I think that's everything. What should we rate this?
I'll let you go first.
I've got to rate it. I'm going to give it a 9.9.
Okay.
I'm going to take the 0.1 off.
Again? Almost 10 again?
Yeah, I'm going to take the 0.1 off simply because the sounds are too quiet.
Okay.
The sounds are too quiet, so I'm taking that 0.1 off.
I don't know, because I'm not racing this car.
But what do you think?
I mean, for what it is, I'm going to give it a 9, and I might even reevaluate when I race it, when I sit down and have a race in it.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I don't know, I think 10 you could be perfect, bang on.
Yeah,
like
well,
that.
that's why I took that 0.1
Yeah.
off. But apart from that, I felt it was perfect having the experience of racing that. But I think that brings us to the end of this episode. As you can see, this is actually going to be my fastest lap, which is a 1:24.143. I can easily, I think with a couple of laps, I could have knocked another second and a half off that. But like I said, difficult to get those fast lap times. So thank you very much for watching. Please remember to hit the like button if you like this video, subscribe to our channel for more videos on Assetto Corsa, and leave a comment in our comments box below. We'll see you next week.